train the mind to stop wishing that it was a different season than it actually is. When the mind's fine to wish, but when the mind is doing it chronically and habitually and subconsciously, meaning we wish our lives was somehow different than it actually is right now. This is about having presence. How can we have presence if we're subconsciously, habitually wishing our life was different than it actually is? And that's hard, especially when our life is tough in that particular season. And a lot of us have been in tough seasons of our life. But there's some medicine there. It's a bitter medicine, but it's a medicine we must take. That's life is delivering us. Radiance gives us clarity. It gives us a sense of directionality in our life. When we're going down the road and it's pitch black and it's dark, you can't see anything, it's very likely that you're going to not be able to stay on the road. If you're going down a windy road like where we live in the river canyon, and you don't have headlights, it's very difficult. You wouldn't ever want to attempt that. But if you just turn the headlights on, it's incredibly easy to go down the road. So this is a bit of what our intuition is like. This is a bit of what radiance is like, is that we may not understand fully or intellectually what radiance is, but we definitely know it when it's present. And this is our sense of clarity, our sense of connectivity to something that's bigger than us. And when we have good connectivity, a good sense of communion, not communion in any religious sense, communion in the sense of our own hearts, feeling connection to a sense of creativity, to a sense of love, to a sense of happiness, to a sense of joy. And when we have sorrows, which sometimes we have tremendous sorrows, that love doesn't fade away. Even sorrows give us deeper love. And so this is the effect of radiance. This is the effect of our intuition. And this is why this part of the psyche is so important. Because without this part of our psyche being well active, then it's hard to not get depressed here. It's hard to not be really anxious and worrying chronically. It's hard to not get really uncontrollably pissed off. And sometimes it's uncontrollably pissed off, but like in a drip system, like passive aggressiveness. You see what I mean? We can kind of like hold it, but we're not holding it in a healthy way. So it's like chronic jealousy. These are fire elements. And when we're talking about radiance, it's a condition of the fire element. It's the subject matter becomes the fire element of the body and mind, the human organism, 5 great elements: earth, water on one side, air, ether on the other side, air and space on the other side. And in the middle, though, is the fire element. If there's too much earth and water, then the fire can't shine. It's too muddy. If there's too much air and ether, it creates wind activity. Then the fire gets blown out. And then there's no luster for the life, or there's a lot of luster and then nothing at all. And then like a lot of luster, like a wind that comes and blows on a campfire and makes it real, real big for a moment, and then it comes down. This is when the prana is in an arrhythmic, non-rhythmic state. And therefore, in Ayurveda and yoga, we say the vata comes high, which causes sometimes like big bursts of energy and then big crashes of energy in our life. Or the winds are making us overwhelmed or worried or anxious. So the meditation practices and what we're doing here in this experience is about concentrating that life force energy so that you're not getting a windy environment that's non-rhythmic. We're going to be working with rhythm today. And instead, you're getting a nice rhythmic experience of your being. You're creating a good biorhythm for yourself, putting your life in rhythm by starting by putting yourself in rhythm. That's how your life goes in rhythm. When life goes in rhythm, this is prosperity is happening. So when that life force can get into a good rhythm, instead of moving erratically, arrhythmically, non-intelligently, Then when we can create a good rhythm with our prana, our chi, our life force, which is what these Kriya practices are all about, then all of a sudden you get a nice clarity to the mind, a good sense of vitality in our bodies. And we feel like more substantively ourselves. That's an inner confidence emerges out of that. This is the beginning of radiance. And then when the dense, more sluggish, more muddy parts of the body and the mind are purified in a similar fashion, also through these types of practices, then our complacency dissipates and we have energy, we have motivation. So the fire energy is your motivation energy as well. This is why Mars is a fire planet, is your motivational energy, your ambitious energy, like Aries. This is fire element. But if that ambitious energy is overly ambitious, what would make anything overly ambitious is it's trying to rush things, it's trying to push things, it's not in synchrony with the dharma of life, with the deeper purpose of life. Being in alignment with the deeper purpose of life means being in alignment with nature herself. And so being in rhythm with the seasons. So not just the autumn, winter, spring, summer, the seasons of our life, be in rhythm with the season of our life where we are right now. In the mind, to stop wishing that it was a different season than it actually is. When the mind, it's fine to wish, but when the mind is doing it chronically and habitually and subconsciously, meaning we wish our lives was somehow different than it actually is right now. This is about having presence. How can we have presence if we're subconsciously, habitually wishing our life was different than it actually is? And that's hard, especially when our life is tough. In that particular season. And a lot of us have been in tough seasons of our life. But there's some medicine there. It's a bitter medicine, but it's a medicine we must take. That's life is delivering us. And so then, when we have good presence, it calms the chi. And so it, again, puts it in a deeper rhythm. When we're able to embrace what is happening. But how can we embrace what is happening when what is happening isn't what we want to happen? It's hard to do. This is tender work of the heart, and then also subtle work of the mind. To refine the mind's habitual tendencies is subtle work. So it takes mindfulness. But why I love the Kundalini Yoga Kriya practices so much is it really helps that whole process quite a bit. To use actual practices that puts the life force in the center of you, gives the mind a relative contentment and clarity. It allows us to see more clearly. When we can see more clearly, then it isn't as hard because we can see that actually what is going on in our life right now is perfect. We can see it. We can see it with our radiance. Through our radiance, we can see it with our own awareness, with our sense of being. I don't mean to make this radiance thing sound like sensationalized, because actually the experience of it is quite ordinary, because it's totally natural. We're not talking about things that are supernatural here. We're talking about things that are extraordinarily natural. And so extraordinary, but totally natural, innate to all of us. Your intuition is a natural experience. It's not that some of us have intuition and other people don't have intuition. All of us have intuition. We may need to cultivate it. We may not be aware that we have intuition, or we may be having intuition but not even aware that that's what it is. So these are the types of things that these practices and the courses that we have, they help us to do. They help us to learn how to pay attention to these things. They help us learn how to pay attention to the subtle parts of our being that are, in a certain way, the most important parts of our being, because it's our very mind. And I don't care how good things are going in our lives, if the mind isn't well, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And so when the mind is doing well, regardless of its ups and downs in life, you're going to do well. Life will be going well, because in the hard, dark times, you're gonna get a deep type of love that you just can't get from the peak of the mountaintop. But when you're at the peak of the mountaintop, also you're gonna get a type of love that you can't get down in the dark, deep, shadowy parts. So it's embracive of all of that life is delivering. It's the experience of that the center of life is intelligent, that the center of life is love. The center of you and I is intelligent and love. This is the idea of the yogis. It's the experience of the yogis. It's not just an idea. That what we are endeavoring to have that experience for ourselves. It's not just philosophy. This is attunement of the mind, the body, the nervous system, the endocrine system, the immune system, but also the subtle bodies, the negative mind, the positive mind, the neutral mind. The neutral mind is the meditative mind. It's what helps us see what is real and what is not real. Negative mind is protecting us from dangers. Positive mind is looking for opportunities. All important natural parts of the mind. But if there's too much negative mind, it goes negativity. If there's too much positive mind, it's delusional. Neutral mind is the meditative, intuitive mind, and it's a part of the psyche. It's called in Kundalini Yoga the fourth body, the neutral mind. The neutral mind is where we have clarity. We have a physical body. We have what the yogis call the arc line. You see it depicted almost like a halo in both Christian and Tibetan iconography, with the tankas, the Buddhist iconography, with the tankas, with the halos over the deities. The arc line is called like the nucleus of the magnetic field. And you have the magnetic field, what they call the auric body. And the pranic body, the subtle body that's inhale deep, exhale, that moves the life force. Your chakras. This is all part of the psyche, though. Once again, it's unpacking the architecture of ourselves so that we can understand how we operate. And then we go, there's nothing wrong with me after all. Don't you love that? Isn't that why we go to astrologers? A lot of the reasons, or some of us go to intuitives or get tarot readings. Mostly it's like, there is nothing wrong with me actually, And that's why? Because it draws you into the present moment. And then you have presence. When you have presence, you're not trying to be somewhere else. We're not trying to make ourselves different than as we are right at this moment. This is the crucial thing, I think, when engaging in yoga practices like these, meditation practices like these, where we're actually endeavoring to make ourselves happy, is to learn to enjoy where we are as we are right now, not always trying to change things, but rather to appreciate more deeply already what is here. This is foundational. It's fundamentals. It's not fundamentals though you learn at the beginning and then you move on. It's fundamentals we have to keep alive in our life all the time, ongoing. Presence, gratitude, not getting ahead of ourselves, being able to enjoy, being able to have fun, not get too uptight. You see? Because it's easy to get a little too uptight when you start to make adjustments. And then you go to the seventh body, eighth body is the pranic body, and the ninth is what they call the subtle body, the part of us that travels along when we die, when we leave the physical body. So wouldn't it be a good idea to get in touch with our subtlety while we're here? So that we're very familiar with that part of our being while we're in the human body. This is part of the experience of being human, is to be in the dense elements of the earth, water, fire, air, and ether, to then experience the subtlety that lies within you. And then the 10th and the final body is called the radiant body. It's connected with courage. It's connected with fire element. It's the most subtle and desirable expression of the fire element. Just like the sun has a certain type of radiance that comes off of it when we look at it, so does the subtle being. The part of you that is non-dying in nature is the idea. But all of that sounds glorious, and it is glorious, but it really becomes glorious when it becomes an experience, not just a philosophy. And that, or is this even, or a system? It's a system to give experience, but the system itself is just a system. Do you understand what I mean? Point being is, I want us to put the emphasis, all right, this sounds glorious, but really what's going to make any difference at the end of the day is, does it change my inner experience of myself in a positive way? Does it help me become more genuinely happier? And does it help me suffer better when I am suffering? What does that mean, suffer better? It means I'm able to embrace, I feel safe enough within myself, safe enough within my body and mind, that I'm able to embrace the suffering that is being served to me in a way that I can access its medicine. So this isn't going after suffering. There's plenty of it. We don't have to go after it. It's coming. So instead, we learn to soften to that and to realize it's not only a negative. Every positive has a negative, and every negative has a positive. And so, but without cultivating that what we call neutral mind, or the meditative intuitive psyche, we get swung on the polarities of positive and negative, and we're upset with our family, and we're upset with our friends, and then our friends become our enemies, and vice versa. And that's all part of the play of the human experience. We're not denying it. We're not even renunciating away from it. Those of us who are householders, we live in the world. We have families. We have jobs. We have kids. We have to be involved in the drama. But to be able to be a part of it and live in a dharmic way, meaning in a way that the natural direction and purpose of our life is becoming more and more clear to us, then all of these things are not the most substantive thing, and we're able to travel through our life with a more lightness of being, and thus we're having more fun, and we're happier, and we're able to enjoy things more. Because we're able to be compassionate with our friends and with ourselves and with our family whenever difficult situations arise. And we also have the radiance, which gives us wisdom. And wisdom tells us where we need to set boundaries in this context. It tells us all sorts of things. But one of the crucial things it helps us to do, living in a human experience, is where we need to set our boundaries in our lives. And that in all the different facets of our life. Why? Because our life is precious, each of us. Nobody's life is more precious than any other person's life or being's life. So therefore, we must remember that our life is precious and we only have so many breaths here. So what are we going to do with our precious life force, our precious energy, our precious life? Therefore, we can't allow our energy to be dragged in directions that are not in alignment with what our life is truly about. So this meditation tonight and the exercises that are going to precede it helps us to have this experience, to turn this idea into an actual wisdom. It's our inner experience that catalyzes the knowledge that we may have into the wisdom that we hold. Wisdom is something that is not a part of the thinking mind. Wisdom comes from a deeper knowing. And so many of us have had the benefit of the wisdom that has been passed on throughout all of the time and ages. We've all had for any of us to be sitting here and experiencing the benefits of yoga practices, meditation practices, dharma practices. We have all benefited tremendously from so many teachers that have kept this alive. And the Buddhists say is like one of the kind of foundational things that must be there for us to even be able to practice the Dharma is you have to be born into a body and have a mind that's intact and a body that works well enough to even be able to do it. You have to have come and be born at a time when these things are still around and they're being practiced and they're being passed on. So it's considered a very, very fortunate time to be here. Very, very fortunate time to be alive. It's easy to get negative because there's so much difficulty and so much suffering. But it's a tremendous blessing to be here, to be alive together, to live at this time. There's no other time. So we can tune into that and feel into that and immediately experience a sense of gratitude, a sense of aliveness. I think any of us are on our final breath. We want to feel gratitude for our life. So that means we need to cultivate gratitude while we are alive. What is our mind's habit? Is it gratitude? Or is it in some other mode that is robbing us of gratitude? Gratitude is a happy feeling. Gratitude is a feeling that arises from love and appreciation. We can, though, make those decisions for ourselves that we want to live in a way of gratitude as opposed to living in a way of bitterness. Subconscious habitual bitterness. How about make some subconscious habitual gratitude? But that's a constant process. This is why there's so much wisdom in having rituals in our life that we do. Sitting down to do a practice like this. It's a ritual. It's a type of, in a certain way, ceremonial. Rituals are helpful because they help us keep these crucial things alive in our life, such as gratitude. That's why we want to practice them in a way, though, where we understand what we're doing, and we're not doing empty rituals where you just put your hands in the prayer pose and it's taking us into some religious mode. But rather, we're actually interacting with life. We're tuning the instrument of our body and our mind. We're helping to elevate its energy so we are well tuned, so you get the harmony of life. The harmony of life is called Dharma. It's not anything anywhere else. It's happening all the time. It's just a matter of getting the frequency dial to where you remember it. And so this is the basic idea for tonight. And I think this is something that, as we open this space and go on this little meditation journey together, it's with that spirit of tuning our instrument, of bringing up the good virtues of love, gratitude, kindness, compassion, intuition, self-confidence, all the good stuff. Prioritizing it in our life. It's a ceremony of that, of prioritizing all the good stuff, the lasting things. What is always going to work, to be around, and what will only be around only for periods of time, seasons of our life. Our body will only look the way it currently does for a season of our life. But what stands the test of time? This is the discovery of yogis like you and me. All right, let's begin. Take your hands into the prayer pose. Hey, thanks for watching on YouTube. Best easy way to stay in touch with us. Hit the subscribe button here. You'll see our videos when they come up. If you enjoyed this one, hit the like button. It'll help more people see it, help the channel grow. I appreciate you watching.